Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Park Police arrest 3 black teens for selling water on the National Mall. Was it a question of racism or crony capitalism? Independence Day weekend, Metro service or lack thereof. Report out of Seattle, $15 minimum wage, a job killer, or is it fake news? And was it wise for President Trump to get tweety after the Supreme Court ruled on his travel ban? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Republican attorney Diane Nash Dillon, political strategist Susan Heltemes, author and former candidate for Congress Liz Matory, and past president of Progressive Maryland Elbridge James. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Generally, about this time each year, there are 2 stories repeated in the local media. First, there aren't enough summer jobs for inner city youth. And the second is that the number of teens working each summer is decreasing. So when 3 young entrepreneurs tried to sell bottled water to thirsty tourists, what happened? The park police arrested them for vending without a license. Elbridge, historically the park police, and more importantly, the competing vendors, have jealously guarded what products and who can sell on the National Mall. Now, the 3 teens who were arrested were African American. Israel suggested that they were treated differently than any other buddy trying to sell without a license.
Excuse me, it's French. It's dumbass policing. You should have turned around looking at these youth and said, you can't do this, let me give you a warning, have a written warning, and then call their parents. And which eventually did happen, and the parent came down. This embarrassed the youth. It gave the park police a black eye, and it was over policing.
It was stupid policing is what it was.
You heard what I said there.
Susan, isn't this an example of another government bureaucracy trying to overregulate the marketplace? Shouldn't they be allowed to sell water on the National Mall?
Well, when you look at on hot days, no one would want to drink water out of the water fountains on the mall. I mean, the water pressure is very low and they're disgustingly dirty. And it was interesting because on a local news show, I watched a white man being interviewed who saw the whole thing happen, and he said, trust me, if my little girl had come down here and tried to sell water, no one would have stopped her.
Oh, you don't know that.
Well, this is what the man, no, but that's what the father said.
I got to tell you, you look at the park police on the mall, and more importantly, the vendors. Those other vendors will kill you if they think you're trying to cut into their turf because there's so few places that they're licensed to be able to sell things. I mean, the food trucks are all around the outlet outside of the mall. There's just not enough vending going on. Liz.
But you know what they said? There wasn't enough water out that day. People around said it's hard to find water.
That's right.
Absolutely, crony capitalism and racism all at once, so both, sadly.
Yep.
And let me throw in a giant leviathan that has become the administrative state that unfortunately is killing us all with too many regulations. You know, this reminds me of the most unfortunate incident up in New York when Eric Gardner was approached or taken down for trying to sell loose cigarettes.
Single cigarettes.
And that is because the administrative leviathan that has to have its tax base raised all the time and get everything they can. And I think it just, again, it's over-regulation, it's too many laws, it's too big a government, too much state. And unfortunately,
but there has to be a happy medium. There has to be a happy medium between public safety and opportunity.
Absolutely.
And again, we have public safety, and vendors come down there and sell items that are not safe for the public because their food items get sold and other things. There has to be some way to police that. Well, but here again, we have bad policing.
Putting these guys in handcuffs was outrageous.
Correct.
I mean, I don't care. Whatever color of teenager it was, that was just the wrong way to address things.
But unfortunately, it's the way of America right now, and young black men have to be careful wherever they go.
Well, I think that this is another example of why we all are responsible for how we, carry ourselves. Thank goodness, with the interview that they said the boys wanted to make sure they didn't overreact because they were afraid of
Correct. They
what could
handled
have gone
themselves.
Well, I think it was
Kudos to
terrible.
them.
Yes.
A terrible example on the part of the park police. That's for sure. And I think we're all in agreement on that. All right, with the 4th of July coming up in the middle of the week, it's expected that there will be tourists and crowds of local populace who want to use public transportation to travel about. But as concert goers discovered last weekend, even the promised metro service can't be relied on as electrical problems shut down the Red Line and stranded many in the district after a concert let out at the Verizon Center. Diane, why have so many people given up on Metro?
I think a lot of them have just been frustrated with the problems with the Metro, with the inconvenience of having planned this as your mode of transportation and then being stuck somewhere. And I know that you are also wondering if people have given up. And I have to say, I personally have not given up. I think that going to Grosvenor from where I live to get down for the 4th of July is really the neatest way to do it and to get back home. I'm going to hang in there. I love my Red Line. I luckily have not been one of the people inconvenienced, however.
But what about the hours of service? Metro announced with great fanfare that they were going to extend the hours of service a whole half hour from 11:30 until midnight. Isn't that wonderful for all the people that are downtown? What's going to happen to them now? Oh, the bars close at 3.
Uber.
Uber. Oh my God, I guess we're going to use the marketplace after all. Liz, what can be done to help restore confidence in Metro?
Well, I don't know. I'm one of the people who are in between. The Purple Line even would be inconvenient for me, to be honest. But as you know, Metro was created as a commuter rail for people to come from places like Shady Grove, et cetera, to come into the city. If anything, we need that diversity of options. People are using Uber, people are using Lyft. And I think the investment is necessary, but it's also 2 decades late.
Well, but I know I was being sarcastic a minute ago, but think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you restore confidence in a system when all you're going to do is extend the hour a half hour? What good does that do? What good does it do the people at Verizon Center who were there for a concert to extend it a half hour and then not be able to provide the service? The people on the mall aren't going to all break up. Oh my goodness, it's 11:30.
If they want,
we're just like Cinderella. We're going to have to run to Metro.
Isn't it going till 12:30 actually on Tuesday night, as opposed to?
Oh, you think that's late enough?
Well, it probably isn't, but
For the
there
mall.
have been real problems, and now there are jurisdictions that don't want to put money in. People complain if the prices go up, but all of us occasionally have been stranded. There's a blizzard, you can't get out on a plane. There's
But this
a
is
train
every
accident,
weekend, though.
and you can't get on the train. It is getting better. They have good management. They have worked on their structure. And is it inconvenient? Yes, but I think that the region's governments are finally getting serious about finding ways to fund it. And they are continuing to do more maintenance. And I think in 6 months, we're going to have a system we're going to be proud of.
Boy, you are really selling us a
I love
fanciful
the
tale.
Metro.
However, I actually was on the Hill 2 days ago with the teenage Republicans, and we ran into Janelle Wilkins, one of the delegates, and apparently
From District 20.
From District 20, and she and a bunch of other delegates were briefing the federal legislators about their plans. So, as Susan did say, they are making a concerted effort. It's slightly late, but at the very least, they are doing their due diligence now.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, I remember when Metro first opened it up in 1976, how excited we all were, and maybe the amount of service is about 1976 level.
Yeah.
But Casey,
as
when
it is
was
now.
the last
When we
time
come back-
you used the
When we come
Metro?
back from this short break,
Huh?
reports out of Seattle confirmed that mandating a $15 an hour minimum wage actually reduced take-home pay. And what's happened with President Trump? Has he gone tweet happy after the Supreme Court ruled on his travel ban? Stay tuned. During the last political cycle, the Democratic Party made a big push to pass a $15 an hour minimum wage bill. Now reports out of Seattle suggest that opponents of the plan were correct, that the increase in the minimum wage was counterproductive. Susan, the University of Washington, in its study, confirmed that instead of increasing take-home pay for workers, after the increase in the minimum wage, take-home pay decreased by $125 a month. So do you still support a $15 an hour minimum wage?
Yes, and I want to clarify that that study was very flawed that was done. First of all, they haven't released any of how they did it, but they did use the state of Washington data only. They did not use any organizations that had multiple locations.
Well, they were studying Seattle.
Let me finish. They compared that data to other cities in Washington. There is no other city that's comparable. $15 an hour starts next year. So what the Berkeley study, there is a Berkeley study out there that was done, it used BLS data and compared comparable cities, and people are doing better. Seattle only has a 2.6% unemployment rate, and by the Berkeley study, things are getting better, people are making more money. Will there be a few jobs that are lost? Maybe, but I think the thing you have to remember, nobody, no matter how poor you are or what your job, is out there, I want to march because I want the minimum wage lowered. And the study that is so flawed in so many ways, but the Berkeley study is more characteristic, and it's all for the good.
Why not just let the marketplace set it?
Yeah, give me a break.
Diane, what is your perspective on the University of Washington report? I think you got to have a different perspective.
Okay, well, predictably, I'm 180 degrees different in my opinion than Susan on this one. I don't think you have to look at too much history, except to go all the way back to the beginning of the Federal Standards Labor Act, when Roosevelt talked Congress into passing the first minimum wage, which was 25%, which I think many studies have shown prolonged the Great Depression. The problem with minimum wage is it bumps the kids who don't have skills, who are working part-time jobs, from having the availability of low-skilled, low-wage jobs. That is one reason why youth unemployment is at historical highs, why inner-city youth, blacks in particular, are very high on the unemployment list. And if you raise it, it's going to lead to more automation. And I think it's inarguable that jobs are lost, people suffer, and the low-skilled, low-wage earners are where the vast majority
I want to go to Elbridge on this.
the
Elbridge?
Jobs are lost in the inner city because businesses have left the inner city. That's a fact. I mean, that's a proven fact. Also, in a lot of places, they've gone gradually to a higher scale. In Seattle, and I do understand, but one of the problems with a small business that went from, I forgot the
it's
minimum,
$11.50 now, under $500, $13.
But it goes up, but it went up
right
drastically.
Now.
Businesses sometimes have a difficulty adjusting their costs. And so we understand, and we're trying to work to adjust that. But in Maryland area, we are working with businesses, Progressive Maryland and other labor organizations are working with businesses to minimize the harm and done to business.
But you speak to that. Businesses have this thing called 2949ers, where they make sure that when they make the tough decisions as who to keep and who to release, they'll give 29 hours to cap the need for that increase, and then they won't increase their employees over 49. So it pushes businesses to make decisions that are economically feasible to them, and it's not addressing the issue at hand where we haven't really thought of the rest of the economy.
But the 2949 works in the short run.
Right.
Naturally, when a business has to, in fact, provide the hours for its customers and the constituent needs, they come to a ceiling on there where they're going to have to go over it naturally.
What's being overlooked, and Diane touched on this, is you cannot stop the march of technology. And the march of technology is cheaper, better, faster. And if you raise minimum wage too high, people are going to find ways to employ technology to get their services and to get those jobs.
Oh, to be so lucky.
Technology was going to happen no matter what.
It's happening in every industry.
Yes.
In the legal industry right now, there are programs that can track every decision that a judge makes and write an opinion based on what those decisions are. So even lawyers may be obsolete, Susan, and I know that'll make you very happy.
Well, you know what, though? With the 2.6 8% unemployment rate in Seattle, they're pretty darn lucky. And the study that was cited, though, is flawed.
All right. Well, whether it's flawed or not, I think the economic message is the minimum wage is not going to solve all the problems for low-income wage earners. That's
water on the
That's
mall.
a fact. The Supreme Court this week reversed a lower court ruling and temporarily allowed the implementation of the travel ban imposed by President Trump until hearings could be scheduled later this year. Concurrently, Democrats attacked the Republican health plan, charging that if enacted, hundreds of thousands of workers would lose their lives. And finally, President Trump distracted the nation again with a personal attack via Twitter, Liz, after 6 months in office, are Republicans still supportive of the Trump agenda?
If we ever got media coverage of his agenda, I think we'd be a lot more supportive. Like, for example, this week he appointed or announced a new Surgeon General, a young man from Southern Maryland, Dr. Adams. Did we get coverage from it? Absolutely not. Yes, I would prefer our president not to go Twitter happy. I would prefer that, but his agenda is moving forward. So we are still encouraged, and the fact that we are working through the healthcare issues speaks to the diversity that is in the Republican Party. We are not monolithic like the other party that I had left, and we actually do have the difference of standards, and we are the stronger party for it.
Elbridge, President Trump seems to have received a jolt of energy after being bombarded by negative headlines from the Supreme Court decision. How long is it going to last?
Oh, about until after the 4th of July. You got to remember, the Supreme Court was the real newsmaker here. It wasn't the president. And what you had the president do is step on his own goodwill with his additional tweets. He cannot help himself from derailing his programs. I understand what you say about the new Surgeon General, but if in fact he had announced that in his tweet, we would be talking about it.
I want to go back to you though, Elbridge. I mean, because months ago, when the travel ban was first announced, everyone on this panel, there was an uproar from the Democratic side of the panelists about how illegal it was for him to have done that. If the Supreme Court upholds this, isn't this showing that a great strength for President Trump?
You're asking me when the Supreme Court held Plessy versus Ferguson. They're not always right. They just turned around and did something that supported the conservative Supreme Court, supported a conservative Republican. That doesn't make it right, and that's not the end.
It was a 9-0 decision.
He did not do a total ban as Trump wanted. People who have legitimate rights here, people now who have a job or if they're going to school, cannot be held back. People who have familial connections cannot be held back.
So you're supporting the travel ban?
No, I'm not. And this is where I'm really, really angry.
Like
No, I'm not, for God's sakes, no. But what I'm really angry about is that grandparents and grandchildren don't count as family, but son-in-laws do, so I guess Jared Kushner will always get back into the country. But
Anyway.
what's interesting, though, it's 6 weeks, and that's when the Supreme Court is going to take it up. They have 6 weeks to work out the kinks. And the thinking is that come the fall, it's going to be thrown out. And Hawaii...
It'll be moot.
It'll be
a moot issue. They won't
and
address it.
and by then, Hawaii has now challenged it again, saying that, on the point that grandparents don't count, grandchildren don't count, uncles and aunts don't count.
The judge out
Speaking
there
of
is
which,
a nut.
when I was a progressive and when I was a liberal in law school, the Democratic Party has really fought to protect their power stance in the courts. So they have worked over the last 25 years to make sure the courts are stacked in their favor. So I appreciate the fact that the Supreme Court still is supreme in that respect, that they can, elevate, and they're not supposed to be partisan.
Oh, give me a break.
That's what we're supposed to have, 3 equally, powerful branches of our government, and I'm hoping that with this new balance,
that was
we could
nominated by President Obama.
What happened to Eric Estrada?
Why don't we go back to Daniel Borg?
What happened to Borg?
Why don't we? I mean, the whole point.
It was drugs.
Yeah.
It was drugs. Remember, he smoked pot.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And we have to clarify, it's not a ban; it's a slow up. And
Well,
But
and it-
Trump
it's-
wanted a
but-
total
but here-
ban.
but
No,
here's the-
and
but
it's for
here's the
6
issue. Look,
countries that have no government and they have no idea who they're sending us. I just think it's insane for anyone to think that the people from those 6 countries that have no viable government
Except the ones
should
that
be
were
coming in
actually
unchecked.
worse.
I want to
Still
break. I want
can
to
send
break in
people.
here because the real story this week is once again how Donald Trump controls the message through his tweeting. You had reporters yelling and screaming at the acting or deputy press secretary about how mean they were to them, saying that they were biased, and then you have this whole uproar over his latest tweet about Mishka Brzezinski and
Mika Brzezinski.
Mika Brzezinski, and whether or not she had plastic surgery. I mean, come on, this guy is distracting and controlling the message, and that's what
He's
is
killing
really
himself.
the real story.
But
However,
some of
the
us love
media
it.
in the last, again, 15, 20 years has been dying. Old media is holding on to dear life to stay relevant. I mean, I have, unfortunately, or fortunately, I know the people at New York Times. They are creating the issue because they have to find relevance in the 21st century.
Well, you're going to have the last word on this topic as we go to break. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back.
We have parting shots.
And welcome back. We've been yelling and screaming at each other the whole time you were gone. Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Susan Heltemes.
This last week, the Economist Group, which is a sister organization to the Economist magazines, announced that America is now a fading democracy, and they rate democracies. Norway is number 1, North Korea is on the bottom, and the United States is number 19. And it's based on things like political involvement, openness, and as a failing democracy, I am really worried. And then Donald Trump announces this week that or a couple of weeks ago, he's having this group to study elections. And they have asked every state in the country to hand over pell-mell to an unsafe website everything, our names, ages, voting records. This is why we're failing. Next year, maybe we'll be 39.
Well, thank you, Susan. Diane, your parting shot.
Okay, well, with that as sort of a, let me take a segue into my Happy Birthday America. I want to give kudos to Mark Levin, who has written a book that anybody who cares about the democracy that is so slipping away, the liberty that is so evaporating, and the encroachment the government is making on our lives, please pick up this book and read it. It's called Rediscovering Americanism, The Tyranny of Progressivism. And do yourself a favor, read the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, as my family and I do every year, and happy birthday.
Well, thank you, Diane. And Liz Matory, your parting shot.
I was actually going to celebrate our wonderful country. I've participated in a lot of these conversations about illegal aliens, and what I've noticing is that we are actually taking away from our citizenship as Americans. I always say that Americans are the strongest citizens in the world. If our democracy does falter, that will be the end of life as we know it. I mean, that sounds really daunting, but our country was made to be different, and we should be more participatory. We should vote more. We should, get civically involved. More people should run for office because it's our country and it's special enough to care that much.
Thank you, Liz. Elbridge James, your parting shot.
My parting shot goes to, as a progressive and a representative of workers, my parting shot goes to the healthcare workers and professionals in Montgomery County in particular. Having, unfortunately, seen their work up close in this past week, I was struck by their dedication, their openness, their kindness. They're willing to help. They're going the extra mile for their patients and for the family of those patients. I'd like to salute those individuals and salute the organizations, the hospitals that employ them.
Thank you, Elbridge. Now, I know I'm naive, because I still happen to believe that America is the greatest country on the face of the earth, and I believe that America is the greatest democracy on the face of the earth, North Korea notwithstanding, Susan. And so I, for one, am going to celebrate and enjoy the 4th of July. I think it's a tremendous opportunity to bring Americans together and to celebrate the Declaration of Independence and our stance that we, as individuals, have liberty and we have rights, and no sovereign can control them. So for 21 this week, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank the panel for their thoughts tonight. I wish everybody a happy 4th of July, and stay tuned. You can get to watch us every week right here on Channel 21.
Right, well done.